It's official. The Latin Mass in the Diocese of Knoxville will be gone at the end of December 2025. Not scaled back, not relocated, gone.
You know, we're not shocked. We're just heartbroken. I mean, we moved our family from the Diocese of Knoxville 800 miles to the southwest of Florida. We're originally from the east coast of Florida, moved up to Tennessee for about 7 years, and then because we saw the writing on the wall with, Traditionis Custodes and all that, we were going to a diocesan TLM. So we knew this day would come. We prayed that it wouldn't. We certainly don't revel in the fact that we're right about it. Our hearts are broken for everybody that's back up there at our old parish that went to that TLM. But that's why we moved down here, because we have the FSSP, we've got a Byzantine rite.
Sometimes people don't know what those letters mean.
Right. FSSP is the Priestly Fraternity of St. Peter. Their charism, their whole being is the traditional Latin Mass. And even Pope Francis told them at one point, Traditionis Custodes has nothing to do with you. You keep doing what you're doing. We're not going to bother you. And that's what prompted the move down here to Southwest Florida. Because we knew that the chances of us losing the traditional Latin Mass were, I'd never say zero, but almost zero.
I mean, the SSPX is here, so that gives us a lot of comfort. Not that we have any concerns that the fraternity is going to go anywhere, but being in Tennessee in a diocese that doesn't have the FSSP, ICK, SSPX, you're limited to only diocesan masses, and it was a scary thought for us to be in this kind of state of limbo all the time, never knowing when the letter was going to be issued.
Now you have to explain what the SSPX is.
The Society of St. Pius X.
And that's the group that TLM haters will say that they're a schismatic group. They are not a schismatic group. Are we saying schismatic or schismatic? It changes from day to day. But they're in an irregular status, but their sacraments are all valid. Even Pope Francis gave them the faculties to hear confessions and give absolution, to perform marriages, things like that. So they're not a schismatic group. They're about an hour away from us. And we've never been to an SSPX chapel, but if it really came down to it, if something happened to our FSSP parish, which is considered a diocesan parish, really, I don't know. I don't think I would blink before going to an SSPX chapel. I just wouldn't.
Yesterday, when we got back from Mass, one of our daughters texted us a letter from our old parish, from the pastor there, and we just loved him so much. And you could read in the letter just the heartbreak that he must be going through, probably his own personal pain of losing the Latin Mass because it's so precious to him, and then also having to be a shepherd to his own flock there at our old parish. You could hear how much he was trying to do everything to comfort them. And I just pray for our friends and family that are still back in the Diocese of Knoxville. And hearing that it's been confirmed that it's ending has been such a gut punch. This isn't about nostalgia. This isn't about the words in Latin. It's so much more nuanced than that. And it really just broke my heart yesterday. And hearing some of my friends share on Facebook, what they were going through and how they couldn't even comment on it at the time because it was just so heartbreaking. And so many families don't have the opportunity to up and relocate their families. We totally understand that. And it's so hard when you've had the Latin Mass and it's been such a huge part of your family and raising your children, to know that that's going away and you don't have the option in East Tennessee for the FSSP or the SSPX, ICK, any of these other options. You are only going to have the Novus Ordo. And it's heartbreaking to a lot of families.
That's a word that we're probably going to keep saying throughout this, is heartbreaking. And I feel so bad for those families. When we first went to that parish, the traditional Latin Mass was twice a month, every other Sunday. And when we decided to start going to the traditional Latin Mass, we walked in, and I think maybe there were 20 people in attendance. And I remember the head usher, he was so excited to see 6 of us walking in, or 5 of us walking in, because we almost doubled the capacity or the attendance. as the years went on, the attendance exploded. I mean, we had as many people in for the traditional Latin Mass at that parish that you would see in a regular Novus Ordo parish on any given Sunday. And it was just so great to see so many kids and just so many really devout people just, growing in their faith. And I know the traditional Latin Mass is responsible for me just growing exponentially in my faith. I can't imagine losing it. I really can't. The bishop up there is Bishop Mark Beckman. He's kind of still new. He came in shortly before we moved, right? And all reports are I hate using the word liberal, conservative, but he's not the most conservative guy. I do give him credit for not just getting rid of the traditional Latin Mass as soon as he took over, but as far as I know, there was no consultation, no explanation to the faithful about how they're going to be cared for next. I don't think, listening to the people that are still up in that diocese, I don't think they actually ever asked for an extension, and I'm telling you, this does not bode well, because first we had that Charlotte situation where that bishop, draconian, just got rid of the traditional Latin Mass except for one little tiny chapel.
And we thought that was so horrible, but
Right.
at least that was something.
Yeah,
And-
but see,
But I mean, it's something. In the Diocese of Knoxville, they have nothing now.
right. And then in other parts of the country, the TLM has been just taken away, summarily taken away, and they fall back on Traditionis Custodes. What I'm saying is this does not bode well for the Leo pontificate. There must be some kind of word coming down that now we're going to go ahead with full implementation of Traditionis Custodes. Because if they weren't, would the bishops not be going, okay, we're just going to let things go, and so because you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, I do think, and I'm still very optimistic with the Holy Father. I have not watched a lot of Catholic YouTube because I'm so protective of how I feel about him, and I don't want my thoughts to be skewed. But in the research that I did about the situation, we know that he met with Cardinal Burke. We know that he allowed him to celebrate the Latin Mass, which it had been denied in 2023 and 2024. So that is a positive.
I mean, at the Vatican, he was
Right, at the Vatican. And then I also heard that he was very concerned about polarizing people. Thought was that Pope Francis wanted to just kind of corral us all and just cut everybody off. And from what I've seen from Pope Leo, that isn't his mindset, that he's very concerned about people not feeling like they're displaced or pushed out of the church. So I'm hoping that between that and then the green light, I think with Cardinal Burke, that maybe we have some hope still.
But you see, I have kind of the opposite take on that. Because Pope Leo has spoken about polarization and this and that. My mind goes to his agreeing with Pope Francis that the traditional Latin Mass is polarized, that the traditional Latin Mass is the problem here.
Well, I think if it's true from what we learned in the past, that either they didn't have, or Pope Francis didn't have the full information from the bishops, or he had like a small group of people had fed him information that was not accurate, because when they talked to all the rest of the bishops,
They were lies.
That wasn't how they felt about the traditional Latin Mass communities. It was the exact opposite, and they were flourishing, and they weren't causing divisions in the church. They were just trying to worship the Lord, and he was going off of information that was inaccurate. So I'm hoping that during this time with Pope Leo, that maybe he's just trying to gather his bearings and maybe get all the information, meeting with the Cardinal Burkes.
Okay, but why didn't he put something out, even through back channels, going, oh, let's just let it go?
Right.
No, but these bishops are moving to get rid of it, and he's okay with it, allegedly, or apparently.
Have we heard that he's okay?
He's not intervening here. He's not telling them, don't do this, just hang out.
Right.
And that can be done through back channels. It can be. And I said this shortly after Pope Leo was elected, and there were all kinds of trad YouTubers just with their hair on fire, screaming, running down the street, this is the worst thing that could happen to us. And Michael Matt was the only exception from the remnant. Okay, he was really stressing, let's take a wait and see approach, and I think he's still there. And I am too, but And I pray I wasn't right, but I mean, we did a video on Pope Leo and how we were, feeling good about things with him. And I said, my cynical cop mind, when he came out on the loggia and he said the prayers in Latin and he's doing all these blessings in Latin and he's singing in Latin from the loggia and all this other stuff, my cynical mind went to where I didn't want it to, but I couldn't help it. And I said, I can't help but get the feeling that he's doing all this Latin. He's dressing in all these vestments with an aim to say, see, you don't need the traditional Latin Mass. You can have Latin, you can have tradition without the traditional Latin Mass. Let's just all do Novus Ordo, and we can have our little traditional aspects of it. Which I hope I hope I'm wrong on that. I pray I'm wrong on that.
Going back to the letter that we read yesterday from our old pastor, he is taking great pains to retain ad orientem. The altar rail is going to remain. He's going to be doing a lot of things still in Latin, which is still allowed through the Novus Ordo or through Vatican II. And so those things will remain. But it isn't just the language. I mean, it's so much more than that.
Exactly. I mean, it's the prayers at the foot of the cross before the priest even ascends the altar, and way that the epistle is read, all that, being so Christocentric and no room for any kind of freelancing on the priest's part, except maybe the homily, which doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
So now what do we have? We have families that are shattered, brokenhearted, having to tell their children that they can't go to the Mass that they love. Priests are muzzled. They can't celebrate the Mass that Pope Benedict gave them free rein to do. Now we have people, Catholics, who never asked for conflict, never were looking for a fight, and now they're homeless in their own church. It's devastating.
It's sickening is what it is. And there's no reason for it. There's no reason for this whatsoever. None.
The entire purpose of a shepherd is to gather souls for Christ, not to scatter us, not to break us. But this decision of his feels so cruel, like a punishment for loving the Lord and not having any desire to understand Catholics. To just be so dismissive, to just cut off so many souls who just want to love the Lord and worship him.
And the irony of it is, they keep yelling unity, unity, but unity can't be built just from out of decrees. It comes from understanding, mercy, time, interaction with the different aspects of the faith. The one faith, it's still the one faith. Cutting people off from the Mass that shape their faith, that's not unity, that's cruelty. Flat out, cruelty.
We don't have one Mass. There are 23 different rites.
Yeah.
We have Masses celebrated in every language under the sun. I just don't understand why we keep saying unity.
And didn't they just make like an Amazonian rite?
Right.
That's okay.
As long as you don't speak Latin.
I guess, the people that attend the traditional Latin Mass, they're not extremists. They're families. They're balancing toddlers and missals. They're college students discovering reverence, and widows who whisper the rosary, in the back of the church. They're Catholics. They're people who love Christ and the church and the Mass that made how many thousands and thousands, millions maybe, of saints?
Right.
People will never know are saints that are saints for at least the last 1,000 years, at least. That has to be suppressed. That has to be done away with.
We've seen what the Latin Mass does to hearts, to families, to marriages. And now, with this one decree by this bishop, we are all being treated as disposable, unwanted, outcasts. This isn't about liturgical politics.
Never has been.
No, it's fear. It's fear of something ancient that won't die. And if anyone thinks that the Latin Mass will die, they don't know their history.
And history is clear. Every time the old Mass is suppressed, it only grows.
Exactly.
Underground. It grows stronger underground. it's funny, but grace is stubborn that way, isn't it?
So what do? How do we respond now? And I would encourage you to look to the Michael Matts of our community of traditional Catholics who have walked the walk for guidance on what to do in these situations.
For decades they've walked that walk.
And look to him, and he has never wavered. He's not afraid. He gives kind of he's like the godfather, I think, of the traditional Latin Mass movement. Look to men like that. We won't leave the church. They can't push us out of Christ's
We're not going anywhere.
church.
We're not going anywhere.
Absolutely not. And we aren't going to apologize for loving the Lord, loving the holy sacrifice of the Mass, and worshiping the Lord like our grandparents did, like saints did. We're not going to be apologetic for that.
We're going to keep driving. We're going to keep supporting priests, who quietly endure themselves. A lot of them, like you said, they're muzzled, and we're going to keep the chant alive at home.
So for the families who feel torn and are looking for real, tangible things to do, if you are in the position like we were and you're ready to uproot your family and relocate to a place like Southwest Florida, there's other places in the country that are also an option, but for us, we needed to be close to the water and our grandbaby, and having the ability to attend the Latin Mass and not lose it. I encourage you to reach out to Real Estate for Life. This company paired us up with two amazing Catholic realtors when we sold our home in Tennessee, and then when we were looking for our home in Southwest Florida. I encourage you to contact them, Real Estate for Life. I'll link them for you in the description box below, and if you're so inclined, let them know that Dina from A Catholic Wife sent you. It helps my family, and I really do appreciate it.
It's not an easy road, but sometimes protecting your family's spiritual life means starting over. It means sacrifice, We know that firsthand. It wasn't easy for us to just pick up and come down here. I mean, it was expensive. We could have done without, a lot of the costs that come with this kind of thing, but it was that important to us. And what is more important than your spiritual life? You know what I'm saying? So if you have to sacrifice, do it. But man, what a terrible situation this is. It's just terrible. And the thing is, Holy Father, Pope Leo, I'm begging you, because I'm sure he'll see this. I'm sure he watches this. Just please, really talk to people that are, traditional Latin Mass goers. Don't just go with what Pope Francis did. I'm sorry, but Pope Francis was just a mean, bitter, angry old man. Okay? And he was spiteful, and that's what Traditionis Custodes was all about. I don't get that from Pope Leo. I don't. I think the man is very pastoral. I think he's a very caring father to us. I really do. And I hope that he really does his homework on this and puts a stop to this.
If you're grieving the loss of the Latin Mass in the Diocese of Knoxville or wherever you might be, and your bishop has ended the Latin Mass because of what Pope Francis put in motion, know that you're not alone. Even people like us who are so blessed to have the Latin Mass and really not a fear that we're going to lose it next Sunday, please know that we stand with you. We unite our prayers with you.
Absolutely.
And just remember that the Latin Mass has survived emperors and revolutions and bureaucracy and bad popes, and we will survive this too, together.
Stay faithful. Pray for our priests. I think, more than just about anything. And even for our bishops that are doing this, the Bishop Beckmans, and I forget the bishop's name in Charlotte now. Pray for them, and pray for the Holy Father every day. Every day you have to pray for him. And wherever the old Mass still stands, support it. When we were only getting the Latin Mass every other week at our old parish in Tennessee, the other weekends, we would drive down to Knoxville where they had Latin Mass every Sunday. And we started really loving that parish. Holy Ghost is a beautiful church. It was a great TLM, high Mass every time. And we got used to going down there. But then when our parish started having it every Sunday, we're like, oh, wow, we missed Holy Ghost. We still want to go down there. But we said, no, this is our parish. We have to support it. And we stayed there.
Right.
And that's what people have to, if it's there, go and support it. Support it with everything you've got.
And together we will keep the flame alive for the traditional Latin Mass. And until next time, take care and God bless.
And as always, Padre Pio, Ora pro nobis. you.